Welcome to the Potter discussion.
Welcome back to the Potter discussion. This is episode 95, and on today's episode, we will be discussing some of the biggest plot holes in Harry Potter. Let's do this. Greetings, everyone. Welcome back to the Potter discussion. Today is a very happy day because we are recording once again. It feels like it was just yesterday that I was sitting down to record an episode, but now we are already back in the studio, and I am so excited to record today because we are talking about one of my favorite topics, plot holes. So Harry Potter is full of these little and sometimes not so little plot holes in the story, and sometimes you notice them, sometimes you don't, but today we will be going over some of the more obvious ones. And I did do an episode on this topic before, but I only went through half of what I had, so now I am just finishing that episode off, and who knows, maybe we might have more plot hole episodes in the future. If you like these episodes, please send me an email. I would love to know. thepotterdiscussion@gmail.com. That is thepotterdiscussion@gmail.com, because I want to know what you think to make this show your favorite. And before we get started, I am going to just give you a quick update about Fantastic Beasts 3 and 4. So Warner Brothers just came out and they said that there would be a slight gap, a gap year between Fantastic Beasts 3 and Fantastic Beasts 4. Now, we don't know what that means, but they said they were taking a break. Now, we could decipher that and think about it. I think what we should do right now is just think about why that might happen. And David Yates was saying how he wanted a smaller project, and there was just so much going on that I think it's better if we roll with the punches, just see how it goes, because this is a really big deal, Fantastic Beasts 3. There's even debate whether there's going to be a Fantastic Beasts 5, even a Fantastic Beasts 4. So it's going to be a little bit of a tense situation from now until the release of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them 3. But when it does come out, we will pretty much know what the deal is. And they did guarantee the Fantastic Beasts 3. I think that's like they were either thinking of a 3-movie plan or a 5-movie plan. Suspecting how based on how Fantastic Beasts 3 is gonna go, that will probably decide if they're gonna do a 4th and a 5th movie. But if they do it well, I suspect they will do a 5-movie series. I think that's what they're hoping on and planning originally in the early stages of Fantastic Beasts. But even if the 4th movie or the 3rd movie is a complete flop, I do think they're going to do just one more just to finish out the story, because yes, the main thing of Fantastic Beasts is the fight of Dumbledore and Grindelwald, and that was going to be like the final battle at the very end. But if they can't have that, then what are they going to do? That's kind of what people are thinking. So the big question here is how is this going to work out? What are they going to do? And how many movies are there going to be? So I will keep you updated if there's any more big news. Alright, let's get into this episode. However, before we begin today's episode, I will remind you that the 2 links in the show notes below, the SpeakPipe page link and the Google Form link, are still available. If you have any questions, comments, topics, Quizmaster questions, or jokes, I'm accepting anything you want to hear, and I do want to hear anything that you have to say because it helps make this show better, and I absolutely love hearing your feedback. Alright, let's get into today's episode. Our very first plot hole of the day is, why don't Muggles see the Hogwarts Express? It seems like a very simple matter. It is a huge train with the words Hogwarts Express emblazoned on the very front, and it is a loud choo-choo train. The choo train? I had to say it. A huge train, and it is going through the countryside, and how does no one see it? I mean, it just seems obvious. I mean, if you see a train, if you even hear a train or hear about a train, you're gonna know it exists. So how do Muggles not see the Hogwarts Express? Well, you might be saying, well, of course, it's just, it's the same deal as Hogwarts, They just see rundown tracks, grass growing, nothing much. It's this huge thing with dozens and dozens and even maybe hundreds of miles of land. How does no one just pass that off as, random thing? It would have to be like a major historical monument or like a tourist exhibit, because there's no way that they just let that pass. Yes, the wizards can conceal that kind of thing from muggles, but they can't just remove it from their muggle world. It still exists. If they walk into it, they're going to hit their head, and there's going to be attention brought to the Hogwarts Express. So even if they do hide it, how do muggles not see this huge track? And let's just say for argument's sake that they don't see the Hogwarts Express. They don't hear it. It's like the night bus. It's just, but there's still a track. And if anything, the track is the biggest part. That is the, tons and tons of stone. There is just so much to do. There's so much material, and there's just so much there of the Hogwarts Express. It seems ludicrous that they don't see that it is there, because it is there. So that is a very large plot hole that wasn't really cut. But if we're going off of the Hogwarts, they can't see Hogwarts kind of thing, I guess it does make sense, because a railway track, if it wasn't explained as a railway track, it should seem like a common thing if it isn't, seen by muggles as something that's out of the ordinary. Because if you see, for example, if you see something that you see every day, you aren't going to think that's out of the ordinary. But if it's doing something that's out of the ordinary, you are going to think that it is out of the ordinary. I said that a lot. But the bottom line is, the Hogwarts Express is just such a big thing to hide. We have no idea how they actually did it. And we could look it up on Pottermore, or rather wizardingworld.com. We could look it up on the Harry Potter lexicon, but we just don't have that answer. There's just so much more than a simple answer given to our faces. So I am looking forward to the day when that is revealed. Maybe it's in the Cursed Child Play Part 4. I don't know. So we'll see. We'll see how that turns out. But that is plot hole number 1. And on this fine day today, we have plot hole number 2. And that is, why didn't the Ministry, or anyone for that matter, just send an owl and, follow it? Okay, here's what I'm thinking. So, you know how if you send an owl, it will pretty much always find its owner, unless it is, or rather the person it's sending a letter to, unless it is intercepted or it has a different goal. This is just such a boggling thing. Why didn't wizards just follow the owl that they sent? So the Ministry of Magic could have just said, alright, hello dear Sirius Black, we are coming for you, ha ha ha. Love the Ministry. And they just gave it to Hedwig, or rather a Ministry Owl, and just sent it off, and then said, all right, let's go. Let's just go follow it. And then the owl led them straight to Sirius, and they busted him, and he went to Azkaban. It's just so simple. The owl is such an underrated thing. I don't know why no one really thought that it could be of so much use to, the wizard kind, and hunting wizards, hunting aurors. There's just so much to having an owl. I don't know how anyone didn't think of this before. And maybe there's some magic code that you just can't. Just an agreement between, the hunter and the hunted. I don't know. There's like random things that just pop up. And that also goes for Voldemort. Voldemort is one of the, most feared wizards of all time. And the Ministry couldn't have just sent an owl to Voldemort and followed that out. Just the whole Ministry just goes. Because yes, Voldemort's powerful, but Voldemort could not defeat the entire Ministry of Magic. But if he had his army of Snatchers and Death Eaters, maybe. But at the time that the Ministry was able to send an owl or do anything like that, they would be by far the outnumbering party. And the only reason, the only factual or even plausible reason I can think of why the Ministry wouldn't do this would be they were scared of what they might find. So they, these dark wizards, excluding Sirius of course, are spun out to be these, horrible people, eat babies and bite heads off. So of course they don't, but that's just how they are seen by the population, because they do some horrible things, and then immediately everyone's like, these are the worst people in the world, so they of course have to do these horrible things. And that does make sense, I guess, but it still doesn't account for the fact that there's just so much fear around these names. And even though that might be for a good reason, I still don't think that is justifiably the reason why the Ministry didn't just send an owl and follow it to Voldemort. I mean, maybe they were just scared of Voldemort and no one wanted to accept that Voldemort was, alright, I just gave myself on a D. Maybe that was another reason. They just didn't think that Voldemort was alive. In the 5th movie/book, The Order of the Phoenix, Fudge was very against the idea that Voldemort was back because he was scared that that was the truth. So he wouldn't have humored the idea of Dumbledore saying, hey, Fudgy boy, can you send an owl for me? And then Fudge would absolutely say no because he wouldn't accept the idea of Voldemort being back. So even though Voldemort and Sirius Black and all these escaped wizards and witches and evil people in general, they could have been found so easily by just sending an owl and following it, these Ministry people just didn't think of it, and they absolutely will never. Plot hole number 3 is one that I have mentioned before. Why didn't Harry see the Thestrals before his 5th year? You might be saying, well, he didn't see Cedric die before his 5th year. He saw that at the very end of the 4th year, and then he left and he came back and saw the Thestrals because he saw death. You can't see a Thestral before you haven't seen death. Harry saw death and then saw a Thestral. It should make sense, but no, it doesn't. Let me explain. So, Harry Potter, the whole story of him, he grew up and then Voldemort came to his house one day and decided, hey, your parents, no, thank you. And he just killed his parents. Not really a nice thing to do, But despite that fact, Harry couldn't see Thestrals, So he blatantly saw his parents die. That was almost the whole point of him seeing his parents die, but still, he couldn't see his Thestral people that were pulling the carriages. Why? It seems so simple. So Harry saw his parents die in front of his eyes. Then he can't see Thestrals until he sees Cedric die. You need to see 3 people die? Is that it? There's something here that just isn't quite there. And I'm hoping that we just can't really quantify why this is happening. So Harry sees his parents die, and he is, unable to see Thestrals until his 5th year. Now, I did make a theory about this a very long time ago, and what I was kind of saying was, well, at least this is kind of what I remember, it was, because, as a baby, he didn't really understand the concept of death, and seeing people die wasn't something that he even understood. But even then, he grew up, and he should still understand death, but maybe it's because, he needs to grow up and then see death again. But there's just death everywhere. If you see a tree die, does that count? If you see a leaf get picked off, does that count? You see people, you might have seen someone on their last day of life countless times. Not the same person, but you might have seen someone on their last day of life so many times, but you will never know that. Anyway, it's gonna end the episode there. It's a very oddly creepy thing to say, but you know what I mean. You see death everywhere, and even as an 11-year-old, he must have seen someone who was, on the brink of going into the afterlife. So even though Harry couldn't see Thestrals for his 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th years, I don't know. It seems a little fishy that he wasn't able to see the thing that enabled him to see the things before he was able to. That was like a riddle. But Harry Potter is just such a confusing story. It might just make sense. It might just have been easier on the filmmakers to not show the Thestrals because their budget, of course, wasn't as big as it was in the 5th year. The Harry Potter movies through 1 through 3 weren't very much. And then, in terms of Hollywood Harry Potter standards. But then in book 4, 5, 6, and 7, and technically 8, I guess it was very, very large. So I guess we can understand why this wasn't the case before, but even then, they could at least mention Thestrals or said what's that, it's just it seems like such an easy thing to do, but they just didn't include it, and we'll just have to live with that fact forever. Our 4th plot hole of the day is more of something that just personally annoys me. Not so much a plot hole, it's kind of like one of those mini plot holes, but it's more of like, what? You know what I'm saying? So this one is, you can repair anything in the world. You can repair even glasses, of course, as we saw. You can repair a brick wall. You can repair a fireplace that exploded. But you can't repair your eyesight. This seems like something that should be a very common thing to do. And I know, I'm not saying that they should have that because it's very hard, but it just seems like they were, the filmmakers were purposely just moving over this fact, or rather J.K. Rowling. It just is such a weird thing, you know? You can repair your glasses, you can repair your lamp, you can repair anything, but you just can't repair the one thing that's causing the problem. And I know that you will never be able to repair your eyesight, even in the Harry Potter, but it's just so annoying, you know? It's right there. You can, you can find a solution, but you can never fix the problem. That is just, I sounded like Voldemort there. I hope you like mine. But my whole point here is there's just so much magic in the world that your spells being invented every day in the Harry Potter universe, and there's so many powerful things that could be used, but you cannot repair your eyesight. Why? It feels like such an obvious thing and such an easy thing, even though it's not easy and it's not obvious. But repairing your glasses is like repairing your eyesight, but it's repairing an object, and it might be because maybe you can't just repair your body. You can't just, alter how you are and who you look like. I mean, you can, but not with a spell. And it just is such a strange thing to not have, You can repair so many things except the thing that you need to repair. It's like trying to repair something that, like a life, You can give them a machine to keep them going. You can keep their heart pumping, but you just can't repair who they are as a person, which kind of seems like that's also part of the problem. With Harry, he was a person with very bad eyesight, as Hermione pointed out, and in the fifth. No, it was the seventh. That's the point. But anyway, the point is, Harry is just someone with very bad eyesight, and he has glasses to help his eyesight, but he can't fix his eyes. There's never going to be a time where I am not going to be mad at this, because, I mean, come on. I am going to have to stop this here because I just can't talk about this subject anymore. While we're on the subject of changing who you look like and modifying the appearance, Polyjuice Potion. Let's just talk about that. What is Polyjuice Potion? It is the potion that stirs for a month. And you stir it clockwise under the full moon, add boom slang skin, and then you take it and your face bubbles like wax. Yes, that is Polyjuice Potion. It changes who you are. Harry and Ron and Hermione took it in this second book, again in this seventh book, and I'm sure there's some places in between. But the point here is, it only affects your face, not your voice. I'm talking about the movie, and there may have been a whole slew of reasons why this would be very hard, but I'm still going to touch on it because, man, this is another one of those annoying things. It's more of a plot hole than the fixing eyesight thing, but still, why does it only affect your voice? Rather, only affect your appearance. It does not affect your voice. Your vocal cords are part of the body, and it's not like the insides stay the same. You don't just get a new set of skin. You still do have the intestines of the person, you have the heart of the person. Like, physically, everything is the same. Of course, you think like yourself, the brain stays the same, but you are that person and that person entirely, except for the vocal cords, of course. Just like, of course, that's the only thing that isn't touched on, just like to keep the voiceover budget at a minimum. It just seems like such a simple thing that they almost forgot. They almost forgot about it, and it was never fixed after the second book. It does not affect the voice, and it may have just been there for convenience, not forgetting about the people and not, changing the way they look and only changing the way they talk, or the other way around. And it still is such a weird thing to not include, just like the eyesight thing. I mean, your voice is like almost like one of the more defining characteristics of who you are. And if they try to keep that, it just looks unnatural. I mean, like, Hermione talking, but it's Harry moving the mouth. That's the weirdest thing. It was just like so bizarre. And even seeing multiple of Harry in the same room, that was even weirder, because it was like, who was Harry and who was what? And then, but the funniest thing was, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I remember, when Matt and me was like, where's Harry? And they all say here, and then, but it's in Harry's voice. I think it's in Harry's voice, but then it just goes back. It just switches back. It is so funny. But it's made even stranger by the fact that in the book, the voice is changed, and it makes so much sense because it is part of the body. The vocal cords are part of the body, and the only thing that they struggle with is acting like the person, you know, like Ron has to like swing his arms. I think Ron is Goyle maybe, and he has to like practice, you know, like walking down the hall like a gorilla, you know, with his bowl cut. So Ron definitely has to practice that with that kind of thing. It's still strange that, you know, the vocal cords are kind of just like disregarded, and the way that you talk isn't seen as, you know, the vibrations of something inside your body. It's seen as the thing that comes out of your mouth is always a mouth, so the thing that comes out of it should always be the same, right? No, wrong. So maybe it's just a magical thing. Maybe it's just a random piece of information that the filmmakers missed. Or maybe it's just a random, you know, piece of PR they put in so people would be making these BuzzFeed articles like 5 things that Harry Potter did wrong, you know? I mean, it would be good marketing if they did, but I don't think that's the case. So there was something there. Maybe they just had to discern between people. Maybe they had to, you know, just, you know, find a different way to show who was doing what and who they were at the time. But it's for whatever reason they did, I'm sure they were going to do it another way, where they decided it was no way that was going to work. So they changed the way Polyjuice Potion affected a person in the movies. Maybe it was a good decision, maybe it was a bad, but we will never know. Going back to Harry's eyesight, it is really bad, and he needs glasses. So in a duel, Voldemort would just have to say,
Accio glasses.
Alright, let's talk about this. So, Voldemort and Harry duel a lot, and sometimes Voldemort casts a spell, and sometimes Harry has to block that spell, and sometimes Harry has to cast a spell, and Voldemort has to block that spell. You know how those go. So, when they are fighting, it's this whole thing, you know, they're like, the dome forms, or the phoenix comes, or the golden sparks appear, you know, it's this whole thing. Always something happens with the twin cores, and it's just a strange part of the story that was forever be confusing, but that's not the point. The point here is Harry's eyesight is how he duels. It's how he lives. And if Voldemort were to find a way to defeat him, he would just have to say Accio glasses, so Harry couldn't see, couldn't duel, couldn't do anything. And when I was writing this, I was kind of thinking about, you know, like in movies, how it was like, you know, they learned how to, you know, make a paper crane when they were in preschool from their father, and then their father died, and they had to, like, you know, learn how to be a ninja, and then, you know, went back, but they didn't need their ninja skills. All they needed was, you know, the how to make a paper crane. You know what I'm kind of saying? It's like the simple things they learned when they were young. That's kind of what I was imagining that spell would be like if it was from Voldemort's perspective. You know, they were dealing with these extravagant spells and casting these big explosions and fireballs and, you know, exploding things, but Voldemort just needed the simplest spell of Accio glasses, and he would have won. That was a very, very strange tangent, but I am glad, you know, I am glad that I talked about that. So you're welcome. You are welcome for hearing that. Man, this podcast has turned into just talking about ninjas and paper cranes. I don't know, they're cool. Anyway, okay, wow, Harry Potter. So Accio glasses is a very simple spell, and it is a spell that Voldemort should have thought of before. Now, I know you're gonna say, well, maybe he just, like, sees the big shape. He doesn't need to see Voldemort's face, he just needs to see where he is. But even if he does, we saw in the third movie just how blurry Harry's vision is without his glasses. And let's just say, I don't know, in the final battle, no, in the grave when Harry and Voldemort are dueling, that was like, it was dark, and Harry was really hurt, and he was tired, and Voldemort was wearing black robes against the night. So if Voldemort had said Accio glasses, Harry would have just seen a bunch of people standing around, and like that, because don't forget, they were Death Eaters, and they were graves, which even adds to the effect of the darkness. So Harry would have to just fire off spells randomly and then just say Protego every couple of seconds just to make sure that there are no spells coming his way. But Voldemort just had such of an upper hand, and he realized this too early on almost. Like, his ego just got too big, his head was just like, yeah, I'm fine, whatever, and he was just toying with Harry because he knew he could win, and he could. If it was just a duel, a straight out duel, Voldemort and Harry, good versus evil, let's say Harry's like in his 4th year, come on, like, there's no way Harry's gonna win. And we even saw Voldemort could just lift a finger and his wand would fly out of his hand. Like, there's no blocking some of the spells that Voldemort can cast. So Voldemort was just like, yeah, I can beat Harry, and I'm going to milk that fact forever. And yes, he did intend to kill Harry in the 4th book, but he still couldn't kill him in the 4th book, he couldn't kill him in the 5th book, he couldn't kill him in the 6th book, and he only killed Harry in the 7th book because Harry went to him. Harry went to Voldemort, but Harry came back to life. So Voldemort was just using his power as an excuse, almost, to show off how powerful he really was. But in the end, that was his downfall, because his power was the reason he didn't have the wherewithal to think, I'm going to kill Harry now, I'm going to be practical, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it now. He just didn't think of that, because he knew he could win. He knew he could win on a duel. So the fact that Voldemort had an easy way out is just something that we will forever know, and Harry will forever know. Well, probably not, because no one would think of it. And Voldemort will have overlooked in just a simple way. I guess we'll just have to live with this fact. And whenever you're reading the Harry Potter books, if you're reading a Harry Potter book right in a duel with Harry and Voldemort, I curse you with knowledge. You are going to forever think about Accio glasses could have been the one spell that Voldemort needed. You're welcome. I have spoiled every duel with Harry and Voldemort. Okay, let's, that was a good segment. Totally. So our final plot hole of this episode, and probably the one that I've been thinking about the most, is in The Prisoner of Azkaban. So I am reading The Prisoner of Azkaban. Right now, I probably have been finished it by the time you're listening to this, but it's a great book, of course, and I just kept thinking about time. So, the whole deal with the time turn, you turn back time, don't be seen, don't interact, don't mess with time. But Harry and Hermione mess with time. That's just how it goes. And it is very confusing. So the continuity does not work at all. So I'll just spell this out. So the book is, totally makes sense. But it's the movie. It's the movie that's like in the world. I was having a conversation with a friend about this. Shout out to you. You know who you are. We were talking about this if Buckbeak died, and I thought that I was right, and of course you thought you were right, and then I watched the movie, and I was like, I knew it, but then so this is a whole conversation. I'll tell you the backstory. We were talking about The Prisoner of Azkaban, and we were saying about how, I was so sad that Buckbeak died in the book, in the movie, then it came back, and then my friend was like, oh, no, but he didn't die, the axe was just him going down to the pumpkin, and then I was like, what? Really? And then I was so confused. So I watched the movie, and it turned out that we were both right. So Mason, if you're listening to this, I will say this now. We were both right, okay? So here's how it went down. Harry and Hermione and Ron go to Hagrid's hut to condole him and say, I'm sorry, it's a tough time, But Hagrid's like, no, you can't be. And the jug with Scabbers breaks, and Scabbers comes out of it. Okay? Who threw that rock? Who did? If Harry and Hermione didn't go back in time yet, who threw the rock? And if Buckbeak is still there, that means that Harry and Hermione did not go back in time. But if they threw the rock, that means they did. And the jug breaks, and then Harry gets hit on the head with a rock that he looks down. He sees that it is the rock that was on the pumpkin. Buckbeak is still... Who freed Buckbeak? Who did it? Who? If Harry is there, but Harry is not there, who did it? I mean, this is just so confusing. And then when Harry and Ron and Hermione, hide behind the pumpkins and then go up, Buckbeak dies. Buckbeak does die. It's unfortunate, but it's true. And then they go back in time, and then they throw the rock, and then they, tap Harry, and then they, go on this whole thing. It's just so confusing. And I was talking with my friend Mason about this, and it's like, I was just saying, this makes no sense. if he threw the rock, but Buckbeak still died, like what happened here? What? You can see why it's so confusing. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, like, what the heck? I am like lost. I'm at a loss for words. This is just too confusing. I mean, like, how does this even work? This is a major continuity error here. Like royally, this is very bad. All right, my brain is boggled beyond belief. If you are on team Buckbeak, didn't die, and Harry and Hermione didn't go back in time, definitely, email me and tell me. But if you do think that they didn't go back in time and Buckbeak didn't die, then email, please, because I would love to hear what you have to say. And what did you think about this episode? What did you think about these plot holes? And what's one of your favorite plot holes? I would love to hear what you have to say. 2 links in the description for a voice submission and a text. Always, you can send me a email, thepotterdiscussion@gmail.com. That is the.com. That's the question of the day. What's your favorite plot hole? And if I didn't mention your favorite plot hole, please tell me, because we might have some plot holes in the future. Even now, I didn't get to all the plot holes. So thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful day. I will catch you next episode. As always, use information to your advantage, and I will see you later.
This was the Potter Discussion.